Amazing. Just using Suits for a couple of weeks. Would love to know if this is your first session or if you've been to a few. Yes, I'm so excited that everyone is joining us and we continue to grow our skill set. I'm really excited to hear first session. Amazing. Sandy, what about you? Julia, nice to see you. Camilla, first session. Amazing. Great. Awesome. Taylor, welcome. All right. Well, it's about that time. So we're going to kick things off and get started. I'll let you know who I am and what we're doing here today. And you can put comments, questions in the chat, and we'll get to them. The team from Suits is on the back end of this, helping surface the questions. We're going to focus on working through this, but as questions come up, I want you to put them into the chat so you don't forget, so we can come back to them as well. So in real time, feel free to keep updating. I'm Vix Reitano. I am the founder and CEO of Agency 6B, which is an AI-enabled marketing agency that I started 11 years ago, built and bred in New York City, like me. And we started working with Suits at the end of last year. I have always been a tinkerer, and I'm really excited to be your host for these sessions. I will be handling most of the agency sessions, and we have some lovely partners coming in for PR, as that is the one thing I don't do. But as I was getting into using this tool and building some of our own, it was a pleasure to be able to work with the Suits team a little bit deeper to really transform the way that this is helping agencies package their IP. Okay, so if you are just joining us, we are in our third week, and I see some of you have said, I need to go back and look. Well, lucky for you, we're going to go over that today. First things first. In the bottom right-hand corner, when you log into Suits, so this is my actual agency dashboard, there's a trend on the internet called Build in Public, and I am 100% a fan of that. It didn't used to be a trend. It was just what we did, right, back in the day. And for me, I want you to really see how this is transforming my agency. I built the agency after working in-house at ABC, NBC, and Telepictures. I launched it fast, 6 weeks, when I was in my late 20s. And for me, it was about having all the time in the world to just do the thing, right? And I love the work. But having spent 2 decades in this space, I can tell you it has transformed and changed and continues to evolve. And while that is exciting, it is also exhausting. So you'll get to see how I have used this to actually scale what we already scaled, and how I'm even every single day learning new ways that we can use this to make things even easier. Even though I feel like agency owners, we're in this because we don't necessarily want things to be easier. We say we do. So maybe this will be the year that we all take our own advice. So when you come into your Suits dashboard, there's a little chat box, bottom right-hand corner. You can ask questions. You can click on Help Library, and you'll see Suits.ai Academy is a whole section right in here. Now, if you want to look at these, you can look at them right in here. The little videos are here. We've broken down each of the last 2 sessions for the main session video, as well as specific mini sessions within that, 3-minute videos that'll help you really focus on the skills that we're building. But you don't have to look at it in Suits. You can also go straight to the main documentation website, which is just the intercom URL, and you can go there and find Suits.ai Academy as well. Session 1 is here, and we'll have more of these up in the next few days so that you can start to see like not only the full video and what we've learned, but also the little micro sections that you can refer back to that we felt were most important. And we're looking forward to your feedback. Like I said at the beginning, we're literally all building this together. The way we do the work that we do is unique, and helping each other is going to get us all there faster, especially with the way AI is working. What I really like about Suits, and we'll talk more about that today as we go into workflows and the workflow builder and the agents, is that it still involves the human, right? I think that we are moving into a space where it's about humans who can use the tools, not having the tools replace strategic oversight and experience. There's nothing that can replace the experience that you all bring to the table. And I think sometimes we downplay our own experience while we focus on highlighting the accomplishments of our clients, right? So what we've already learned in week 1 is setting up your profile as a user, configuring your voice as a user, connecting integrations, understanding the fundamentals of the platform, building the knowledge base, really setting this up as a hub for your unique agency and giving yourself kind of a leg up on training your AI. Then last week, we went over different ways to better understand how to use the workflows, how to use the bulk, like actual offerings, using the account level, customizing the accounts. And now this week, we're going to talk about the workflows as a whole. So we're going to talk about your processes, right? Which, if you're anything like me and my agency, most of them live right here inside my head, which is a very interesting place. I'm sure many of you would agree. And you know it inside out. There's so much muscle memory, right? To this, you're like, wait, okay, I have a new client. Like, this is what we do. As you bring on new people, it's not always a seamless process. And this session is really focused on helping you reduce the amount of time that you spend training, and also allows you to empower your team to bring new learnings to the table by standardizing the stuff that AI should do well, which is like administrative, analytical, but really giving you kind of a starting point so that then you can go further faster with templates that are client ready with the click of a button. So your secret sauce is your competitive advantage, period, the end. We don't have to debate that at all. By the end of today's training, and I know we have some folks who are brand new to the tool, so maybe you haven't explored all of these processes and workflows, so we'll get into that. But if you've been using the tool for a while, you know that not only do we have agents and tools, we also have workflows that leverage the best of those tools. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. You'll be able to quickly scale and understand the difference between the chat window that can sometimes be very intimidating, especially to folks who are not comfortable with AI prompting. And then we'll also learn about the workflows that are predictable, right? And when to use what, and how to train your team on how to use the different pieces of the tool. Setting up your own processes. So how do you create your own workflows? Maybe you have some Google Docs, maybe you got some ClickUp stuff, maybe you, like me, love a good sticky note, and maybe you've got some sticky notes somewhere. You want to make sure that before we do anything that we can talk about, like, what are our processes and how do we want them to work? And then we'll also talk about, okay, within our scopes of work or within our master service agreements or whatever you call your engagement documents, how do you take those documents and then turn them into information Suits can understand, right? One of the biggest benefits of this platform is that it already understands what an agency is, does, how we operate, and you don't have to train it on that, right? That's the big difference between going to chatgpt.com or Claude.ai, going to those tools and just using an AI tool that's not trained on the intricacies of agency life is really kind of like a gamble, because you don't know how well it's trained. In this case, you know it's trained well because that's what it's built for, right? Every tool has a purpose, and within Suits, every section and every tool and every workflow has its own predictable purpose too. Okay, what is a workflow? A workflow in Suits is the exact steps you want the agent or agents to take to deliver the same result every time it runs. Use a workflow for client reports, account analysis, client onboarding, and team onboarding, right? You can use workflows for a lot of other things. Account prep, like meeting prep. You could use it for new business development. You could use it for project management, right? I don't know about you, but I like to look at our processes internally and see if we're being efficient at least once a quarter, right? If I'm having my way, I do this once a quarter. We don't always have time to do it, but this is a way that it could become predictable. And it really also will help you honor what you want to do this year with your agency, right? Are you trying to grow your own skill set? Are you trying to grow a certain line of business? Are you trying to clean up the ever-present scope creep? Whatever you're trying to do, you can use a workflow to help make that process repeatable and predictable. When I say the steps, it's literally this, then this, then this, and we'll go over what that looks like. Now, where are workflows in Suits? If you've joined before, I know we have some folks who haven't. I'm going to go into the platform shortly. I want to take time very quickly to get into where these things are, just so that you have a frame of reference, and so that when you go back to look at these recordings, you know, okay, now she's going to go into the platform, right? We're trying to give you more predictable, see a theme here, a flow to how you get to learn the work that we are demonstrating, right? Or learn the skills that we are trying to teach you. So when you go into workflows, you see all of them, and then you see a new workflow. So I'm going to actually jump into this section here on workflows versus conversations, and then we will go into the tool. A conversation in Suits is the result of a prompt, which is anything you type in. Prompts get a lot of hype, and people are trying to sell them left, right, and sideways, but it's literally a question that you ask in the chat box. The outcome of a chat conversation, right, same interchangeable words, depends on the agent or agent selected, the account variables, the tools that you use, and the prompt the user submitted. All of this essentially says workflows, predictable, conversations open to human error. Also open to human genius, right? So sometimes experimentation is not bad, but for most of the work that you're going to do to scale fast and to take your unique genius and turn it into an AI product, you want to leverage the workflows. Now, this piece here, continuing a workflow or learning how the agents work, or even just like more questions, right? Sometimes you want to continue a workflow to refine the analysis, but sometimes you want to continue the workflow to add on. That's when you would leave a workflow open, as opposed to having it end in a client-facing report that you can customize as much or as little as you want. Where can I start a conversation in Suits? So as you saw before, when we went into the help library, when you come into Suits, you've got this very somewhat intimidating sometimes chat box, right? You can also come here. I always close my menu, and I'll show you that in the live tool, but it looks like a little pencil icon. So it's a chat. That's where you can start the new chat. Hovering over it will also show you how to start a chat. Now, why are workflows better? Consistency. So anyone in your company can use a workflow to output client-ready document for one or more accounts at once. For example, part of my agency's workflow that I developed based on the agile process for software development, based on a book, Agile for Everybody. If you haven't read that as an agency owner, it's incredible, super helpful, I think. It's about creating client supportive or client first workflows in any type of business. And that's internal clients, you and your team, as well as external clients. So for this week in our process, it's called our planning week. The first week of the month, we meet with all of our clients to plan for the month ahead. So we're talking right now about March, right? There's predictable things we do. We need to do a little analysis. We need to do a little prep. We need to do all of these things. We need to do, the book is called Agile for Everybody. It is a super quick read, and I love it. I think I read it in like 5 minutes. It's on Spotify too, if you are a Spotify subscriber, but I know it's also on Audible. Agile for Everybody, super skinny. So back to what I was saying about rolling this out, right? We have all these processes, things you have to prep, things you should review. With Suits, I can now just have those things run the first week of the month. We are using February as our recraft our systems month because there are so many new AI enhancements, let's call them that, even beyond what Suits is doing. There's new things happening in AI. AI gets better constantly. So we're learning some new systems. I end every training with learn our way, use our tools, adapt the how to your learning style. And with Suits, we can virtually eliminate all human error, although, like I said, even great software can't do that yet. So we'll talk a little bit more about why this is great. But what's nice about it is you could have a team member who is brand new, or an experience I had in the last 2 years, a team member who's coming in to support maternity leave. I have a 2-year-old who needed to learn things, knew what they knew, but didn't know the intricacies of our agency. Had we had this in place back then, it would have given them a lot more confidence, and me too, honestly. So there we go. Adapting your processes to workflows. Again, this is, I think, the most painful part because we all like to do our work and not show our work. An example I used for this with the team was, it's like those math problems that they used to ask us on standardized tests. Show your work. I never showed my work, and now I show my work every day. So before we begin creative workflows, map your process. The one that we just built, and I'm going to show you a bunch in the next part of the demo, I had it review competitor content, generate headlines, subheads, and CTAs for a graphic aligned with our campaign goals. And then we generated some variations that the team then had to review and physically, as a human, move it to a Google Drive folder we have, share with the client for feedback, and then revise, right? So the conversation gets to stay open. This actually worked out really well and generated some super high quality images that I'm really excited to test with a client. You've got options. So you've got all these templates to get started to think about, well, how do we make an awards calendar? Does this work for me? Or do I need my own full custom? You could build your own. Now, when you build your workflows, you don't have to share them with anybody. So there could be like a workflow that you want just for you. Give me an update on team resourcing, analyze my account manager's last 5 calls, right? Things that help you as a CEO, things that help you as a founder, business development side, analyze our finances. These build your own workflows are really just to speed up your processes and reduce the amount of AI tools you're using. Suits is your hub. You don't need any other tool. And then you can build for the team. So for us, we're in the middle of a visual rebrand, but we will have little icons as part of that process where our team will know, okay, these are the ones that they can use. So for example, I love the Instagram calendar tool that's already built, the Instagram calendar workflow that's already in Suits. But I wanted 2 weeks at a time. I like doing a full month of content, but again, the world moves so fast, 2 weeks is great. So we built our own comprehensive 14-day calendar. I wanted HTML code for email generation as part of one of our scopes of work. We did that. I have this process for meta ad copy refresh. We are a full service agency, so we not only build AI apps and workflows, we do everything from the moment a client discovers you to the moment they renew and recur their business with you and then refer you. So for us, there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle, right, of how we do the work we do. Now, before you get ready to build, take a minute, write down these questions. Where's the data coming from, right? Is it like, where is the client data coming from? How does it need to be customized? Do you need to put in different details about specific clients, location, name? So the inputs are like mail merge. In fact, my mother was an attorney. My mother is an attorney, and I was her secretary for many, many summers growing up. So I know a little bit about mail merge. And it's funny how all of these things just become new tools. It's literally this section, this input can be updated automatically for every account that you want to use it for. So what other inputs can you use for your own team's ease of use? In our example, it was a subhead and the headline. What does final output look like? And now, Sally will be supporting for the PR training, and we do support with this as well. And you can talk to Ben about that separately. But let's get into building now, because I really want you to understand how powerful this is. So when you come into workflows, all of the workflows are here that exist, right? Then I'm going to show you my workflows, like I showed you in the screenshot, and we're going to build some. So I also have all workflows. You also can have your favorites. So for me, the Instagram calendar is the favorite one that I built. Now, I'm going to show you how to edit it, and then I'm going to show you how you can duplicate it and save it. We're going to start, if you remember from last week, we ran it in a batch. So we're going to make sure we make that an option. And if you go back to week 2, you can learn a little bit more about why running it in a batch is important. But first, before we do that, I am going to build our own workflow. So the workflow builder is, I think, one of the best releases that the team has done. You can start from a document. So what that means is, let's say you have a scope of work or a process doc, like an SOP, you can upload it right here and get started. Now, if you joined us for week one or watched week one, you know that you can also add Dropbox and Microsoft's version of this. So, and you can add Asana, there's a whole bunch of other tools that you can add, but you can add Dropbox. We don't use Dropbox, so that's not a tool that I have connected. What you see here in this training is everything that we actually use in our day to day. But it's easy to SharePoint. Thank you, Ben. SharePoint, Box, Dropbox Drive for Google Drive for documents. You can start from processes again, same way, or we can start from a template. So what's nice about this is, let's say we start with a blog post. This will show you, and you click over here, done. It'll show you how it's built, so you can see the configuration, so you can better understand how these workflows are built. And what it starts with is just the name. You can change the icon. You can make it specific to a client. So you could say, any client that you're working with, this is their custom workflow. And in a few weeks, we're going to talk about how you can sell them workflows to increase revenue. You can make it have an integration, right? So let's say that you wanted it to search Slack messages and you want your team to know that this includes Slack. You can use that. Or you can use just generic icons that are available that you feel represent this, like this. Again, or you can add your own. So based on the accounts. So for us, we also want to decide if we want to make it public or private. When you make it private, it goes in my workflows. No one else can see it, and you can edit or change it. But making it private doesn't change the ability to edit it, right? That's just about who can see it in the workflow view. Public means everyone can see it. Now, in the category, while you don't have to add a category, I recommend that you do just for organizational purposes. If you find that there is not a category that matches, that is something that you should give us in feedback. But I think they did a pretty great job of making sure that all of these match at least something. Here's that conversation versus report that we talked about. So if we do conversation, it will end in an open chat window. Report will end in a final report document. User inputs. These account inputs are the existing accounts. Again, go back to week 2 to learn more about all of the capabilities within the account level pages of Suits. These are all linked here. These are the pieces that you can pull in from those specific inputs. You can also create your own input. So when I referenced our example earlier where we had subheadline and headline, this is what I used. If you need to add a lot more content, right? If you're adding like a caption or something like that, you can use multi-line. You also have the option to use dropdown, which I did use in one of our examples. You also can attach things. This is the really exciting one. So for example, you could attach screenshots. You could attach a database. You could attach existing reports from within the tool to say, okay, I want to analyze all of the social or all of the geo reports for the last month, or I want to analyze the current geo dashboard or whatever, right? You also have the ability to bring in any other spreadsheets, presentations, great for new business, or any type of document. And this could be optional. So if you keep it optional, you just click the optional button. Pretty standard or pretty easy to use, I would say. Then the next piece is either using a single task or a multitask. And these are the pieces where I said several times in this presentation, what are the steps you want to take or you want to direct the agents to take? And the agents are research analyst, content writer. We went into this really in session 1. We will go into it more. The agents are integrated in everything that we do. We'll talk again, like I said, about new features that are coming out. There'll be some more videos on that. But essentially, if you want each agent to do something different, you could use all of the same agent. You could use multiple agents in a workflow. And this is where you would make those changes. So if we did a single task, it would just be one thing, which we'll talk about in a second. You don't have to put in a description. Sometimes it's helpful. Giving a role is very helpful. And this is where you put in a prompt. So what's important about figuring out for you what your processes are is understanding like what type of person would be doing this and what hat are you wearing if it's your process when you are doing it. The input fields, aka the mail merge fields that I referenced, can easily be added in with the @ symbol. So it's very similar to other tools, software tools that you may have used. And it's any of the other ones that are connected to the tool. So let's say if you added in the organization name, while this wasn't connected, it would then become part of the process. So like you could add that in for a report if you want to add your own footer or something similar, right? If you have like a specific header that you like or anything. I don't know how your reports are, but that's a great way to keep it standardized. Once you finish putting in like all of your prompts, what you want it to do, what you don't want it to do, what you want it to search for, you can then attach an example of what this would look like if a human did it, or an example of how you developed it. And then you could also put in more guidelines if necessary. I would say this is really for like the next tier of your iteration. There's no need to do this unless the client has like a very specific this is more important for like medical or regulatory fields, things like that. Otherwise, like cannabis is an industry where I think probably you have some more guidelines that you need to be very careful with. Botox, like, or what do they call them? Fillers, neurotoxin fillers, things like that. Then the content outline here would be like, if we're going to do content, what comes next, right? So every single step has its own process or prompt. And then from there, you put in how you want the result to be formatted and which of the agents you want to continue the conversation. Last piece here is the advanced option, so enable batch processing, which would be the only one that I don't want you to forget. Once you do that, you can test it out here with an actual workflow, or you can just save the workflow. So we're going to go to the live builder again so that I can show you new workflow. And I'm going to put in here here we go. Build a workflow to generate an HTML code for email marketing in any email service provider tool. Now, I already have one of those built, so I'm going to go back into my workflows and show you where I did that. Email code generator. So this was what was built from that same prompt. And what I did here is you can decide let's pick this account. You can pick the brand voice, or you can pick additional brand voices, which we did go over in week 2 of how to add other brand voices. So maybe you have a client report voice, or maybe you have an Instagram channel voice or anything like that. And then email content. So it would be, what is the content? For example, this email is a weekly newsletter featuring products. And this would be the actual content, like buy this great product. Now, obviously, most of these are much longer, right? Because we have another agent that does that beginning part. So then you hit let's go. And this one we have as open-ended because we want to be able to make refinements on the code so that we have it. Now, the other work, so let me go back to some workflows. So in our workflows, we've already built that. So we've done that in 2 different ways. The initial workflow that we used is to scrape the website, craft some subject lines, write the feature story, and then all these different sections so that then this can get either uploaded to a Google Doc or sent directly to the client so that they can see how this looks. Now, obviously, these are a little bit longer depending on what the purpose is, right? It really just depends on what you need it to do. So if you don't know how you want to get the prompt started, or if you don't know what you want the formatting to be, this is a really good example of how that workflow can help you do that. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. But ultimately, I really wanted the client to have this implementation guide. This is a very early preview of monetizing these workflows. So we don't have to do any execution on this. This is something that we give to a client and then they and their team execute, but it's based on all of our processes. So this changes the scope of work that we're offering for an email marketing service tremendously. And it also can keep the formatting the same based on a process that I developed to create like conversion worthy emails a long time ago from different perspectives. So this is I think, a good example of why you would want to kind of stack those agents. Now for us, for this purpose, we only needed one. We only needed the content writer. We could have used other ones, but essentially that was how we did it. So in here, hold on, let me give you, so this one, for example, adds on testing and documentation, right? We can have email specific. It took what I asked, build a workflow to generate HTML code for any email service provider tool. I know what the client's tool is, but this one actually gave me better information. And then in here, I can actually see the work that it did. We talked about this last week in any chat conversation. So remember, when we're talking to the workflow builder, we can either configure it manually, or we can chat with it in real time, just like we would chat with anything else. And when we talked about chat earlier, we said this will allow you to ask more questions or get more clarity, right? Essentially what that long spiel was about how to use chat. In this case, it also brings up examples of why it decided to take the actions it took. It does that in every chat. I mean, I haven't really experienced a chat where it doesn't give you rationale, which is another feature of Suits that I think is underrated. And then it built the workflow, and now it'll tell me what will happen next. What are the assignments for these agents? And if I decide, so let's go back up here. The workflow builder used the agency agent to tell me that it chose the marketing manager because it's built on Claude and optimized for this. And then I could say, well, I really want it to be optimized for design, right? So I could say, what if I wanted to optimize for an e-commerce design that converts in 2026? I could say, would you pick a different agent? And then you can continue that conversation. So think about, even if you don't know anything about prompting, stay curious. Again, I live in toddlerland most of the time. So, but why is basically what your vibe should be when you are trying to vibe code or prompt. Why did you make that choice, right? So pushing the agent to explain itself and giving you better feedback will actually make you become even stronger in your own processes and rationale as well. I find it makes me stronger. Julia. So can you give us a more specific question? I saw the chat. I want to come back here. Can you give me a more specific question on your comment? And then I will help if I can. Before we move on from all of these, I want to show you how you can just use one for your existing clients, right? So we did this a little bit in week 2, but let's say that we did blogs. So last week we did blogs and batch posts and why that works at the account level. But let's say you want to write a website copy. You can pick for any website, key points, anything. Like you can put anything about your page. So we could put, for example, about us, 11 years, NYC based, AI enabled, right? Like whatever I feel is most important, supporting ambitious founders, whatever I feel is most important for this particular project. And then I can do this for me, right? Product service, doesn't matter. I could put agency services. And then I have personas from the account level. Again, we went over this last week. And then it will generate website copy. Now I want to show you, if we go back to our workflows in here, in history, I have all of the workflows that I've run in here. It also shows whether I've done chats or reports. So remember a little bit earlier, we talked about this one that I built. This one outputs as a report. What I'm going to share right now is how we did it so quickly. You can see here last week, we ran it within seconds of each other. Actually, I think in the time codes. Yeah, it's like about the same time. And I ran this for 2 clients at once because we did it in a batch. And what this workflow allowed us to do was have this be customized to the agency, right? So behind the scenes reel, post hashtags, as well as one of our clients, which is a dance studio. And see, dance mistakes beginners make. So what I'm trying to show here and what this is demonstrating is the workflow is called Instagram 2-week content calendar generator, because that's the workflow that I used. I used it for us, and it looks exactly the same as Dance Space. It's exactly the same. There is no difference. It is tailored to each account. So that's the power of workflows. It's the same output based on, like, especially with a report, it looks exactly the same for every account. So for every client that you run it for, it will look exactly the same with the content in here tailored to the client account that you run the workflow for. And that's how you can quickly scale this. So now, for example, I can go back to workflows. Let's go into, hold on, our workflows. This is the workflow that I used. I can say, okay, and we're going to do automations next week. So that's where I'm getting stalled. I don't want to tell you how you can automate this every week, but I can say, okay, I want to run this for this account and this account and this account and this account and this account, either at the same time in a batch, which I will show you again, even though that is in week 2, or I can just run it for this account because I need 2 more weeks of content and we're focusing on something different. You can now send this to your team and say, hey, go run Instagram 2-week content calendar and then export it for the client. Instead of saying, write 2 weeks of Instagram content, make sure that you check this, make sure that you check that. Taking your process for how you create and generate, in this case, a 2-week content calendar for Instagram, and turning it into a workflow reduces the friction of give me 2 weeks of Instagram content versus do 2 weeks of Instagram content in the way that our agency 6B, creates Instagram content, right? So there's no more reminders of, hey, did you check this? Did you check that? Did you research the best practices? Now my team comes in here, picks the account they want to work on, and they run the content through the workflow, and they get the output that I shared with you the way that I want it to look every time. All done without any back and forth. Now, obviously, I still say you have to read it, but I would also say it's pretty good because the account level has been trained on the different voice and tone. So the more that you do week 2, which is training your client accounts with the specific voice and tone, brand kit, different voices for different platforms, the more training you do there, the less work you have on the output on the back end. Now, I would still recommend that you read it because everything that comes out of AI should be read no matter what, even with a great AI tool like this. Okay. We've gone through a lot today, and I realize that some of this may not fully make sense, right? Because maybe you're saying, well, in my scope of work, we do some geo tool, we do some, SEO content writing, and then we do this, and then we do that. Or, in our scope of work, first we do a persona, and then we do a company deep dive, and, then we do this, and this, right? That's what we're going to be talking about in an upcoming session focused on automations, where we could then literally stack workflows and then automate them so that it becomes much more process driven. The purpose of today is to understand that however you do what you do, so to reiterate our example, we right now are making a 2-week Instagram content calendar in this example. The way that you do it can be replicated with a workflow and templatized with that same workflow for every single client account that you have, for every client account in an instant. Again, batch workflows are in week 2, and we don't have a ton of time, so I don't want to go over that again. But essentially, that's the way to run them when you click run in batch. I just had it. It's giving me a hard time, of course, always, because I did it last week. I'm going to show you in the history. Batch. It will let you pick multiple accounts to run the same workflow at the exact same time. So when you open up a batch workflow for any workflow in the workflow section, here, hold on. So for any of these, you can run a batch. It will open it up just like this, and you can add as many clients as you want, and then click batch run. And within seconds, you will have the output for that workflow for every single client account. And then we'll talk about how it can be done automatically, or as I like to say, automagically. So every 2 weeks on Monday at 8 a.m., the batch could run. And that's what we'll talk about when we get to the automations piece. Let me know if you have any other questions. I know for some of you, maybe this feels like a lot. I would recommend, and I will say, the workflows themselves, there are so many good workflows that could really just make life easier for you. So take some time, think about what you do on a regular basis. One of the rules that I have for my team is everything that you're doing, if you're doing it more than once, you need to put it on our doc for Suits builds, because I'm handling all the builds right now, and then go from there. That's one quick way to do that. Last piece I'm going to talk about is the artifacts. So the workflows, I have those examples right here. Hold on. The workflows that give out an image here in history. I pulled a bunch of those specifically. We have, oh, where's my saved ones? Hold on, excuse me. Mine shared with me, starred. So in my favorites, that same workflow builder that we looked at will give out a report. Where was the one that I had with the images? There's an edit. I had this. Hold on, I literally had my report one. 1 second, I want to just show you this one very quickly, and I had it ready to go, and I lost it. Here we go. Okay, oh, no, not that one. I had this one in my other client account, my Backbridge one. So we have, it's an image in our meta. No, my gallery. Let me just look for my gallery one. I had it, of course, ready to go, and then I lost it. In the artifacts section, you can, here, let me just show you what I'm trying to explain here. I'll use the geo one. So in this one, for example, in geo prompts, anything in, I'm going to zoom in here, in the chat window, anything that comes into a grayed out, a gray box is an artifact. And when you click on it, it's clickable. So if you can see on my screen, it's when you hover over it, you can actually see that it is clickable. And then it will generate an artifacts section over here, very similar to how the workflow builder generates the actual workflow once you're prompting it. In here, you also have all of the options for all of these things that were generated within that. So I asked it to generate a table, create a table, right? So this is the table that it generated. If I were to have it revise the table, it would have different versions here. The benefit of having these, and we talked a little bit more about these last week, or we talked a lot about these last week, and we'll continue to talk about them again, is that when you click on actions, you can download it as an Excel sheet, a Google sheet. You can send it via email, send it to Slack, or connect any other integrations that you have, right? So if you needed to add other integrations, if you click on that straight from the workflow, it'll bring you back to the section that we spent a ton of time on in week 1. The benefit to this, in my opinion, is now you have a template that you can share with a client in real time that is ready to go. This also works for PDFs. It works for reports. It works for all sorts of outputs, all sorts of artifacts based on whatever the workflow is, whatever the output of the workflow is that you are trying to prompt. This is kind of a feature from Claude if you're familiar with it. But in my opinion, I think the artifacts are one of the best ways to create consistency within the agency. Oh, let me see. I see we got more. Let me just get back. Yes, let us know if you have questions because we're just about 10 minutes to the time. You can also see the ones that I'm testing in the agency 6B workflows. Any other questions about how to use these different workflows, which workflows you can use? The benefit of being able to edit any of these workflows or duplicate them, if you want to use your own as a template, is so if you duplicate it, you can make an edit, is that you can still use the original version, which I would refer to as the best practice in this case. And it's also a great way for you and your team to start to better understand how Suits works, right? Start to learn the agents, start to learn what you like, what you want to customize, or what you feel is good to go as is, right? Because some stuff is good to go as is. Good question. Workflow bugs we should be aware of. Benjamin, you had a great question last week too. Formosa, not Zenu. Although Ben, you have good questions too. But Benjamin, like, give me an example. I think like all AI. So what I'm gonna say is with all AI, sometimes we over prompt and sometimes we like overthink it. And that would be the only thing I would say, right? Like I tried to get, that's a good example. I tried to get it to do, yeah. So I do the same thing because I want it to be so specific. But that was where I was saying, if you let the agent, like instead of, so what Benjamin said in the chat is I have a bad tendency to write an essay for every prompt. And it can feel like that because you feel like you have to really be specific or you're not specific enough. So a way to fix that or test it is to go into new workflow and say something like, if I remember correctly, Benjamin, you do a lot of SEO. So I want to create SEO on page SEO content for clients based on scraping their competitor sites or something, right? For ideas. Now, you could just put it in this way and see what it delivers, or you could come back here and instead click on this. And for the second use case, you can click on Improve Prompt. This little star button right here is the best way to help you improve prompts. We have 2 folks in the chat saying I prompt too much, I prompt too little. Either way, this improved prompt will help you understand how best to work with these agents. Again, this goes back to what I was talking about at the very beginning of this presentation, which is Suits already knows about agency life, right? Suits already understands these 60 plus workflows that we need to execute. It understands business, it understands productivity. You could even test out this one, right? Take an idea. What's your goal? How do you want to achieve it? There's so many different things that you can do. This is a great one, I think, sometimes helpful. But these already know. So you don't have to have that extra step of giving it too much of a role, unless you want it to be like you are a technical SEO writer or you understand the requirements for GDPR in these countries, right? Any of those specifics, like compliance, I think is helpful when it comes to extra prompting. But that's part of what we can learn together, right? So every week when I say, when you join, let me know what you did this week or what you didn't do, I really want to know. And I hope you'll connect with me on Instagram, connect with Suits on Instagram and LinkedIn, because I'm really curious how you're building this. Like, we can actually build in public together. So as you're doing that, remember to bring your best, give Suits your best shot. The improved prompt creates output instead of updating the prompt. Interesting. Uh, Ben and the Suits team will pull that one in, and I'm sure we'll send out some feedback on that too. Remember, it's a good time to remind you again, the help library right here if you're stuck. And one thing I will say, because I'm an agency owner with a developer brain or an engineer brain, take a screenshot. If you are submitting a thing to support, if you are submitting a ticket, as we call it, take a screenshot, let them know what browser you're using, let them know what you were doing in the time that this happened, and also clear your cache and your history. I have a calendar reminder to clear my history at least once a month, and I think I need to do it more often. So just a little gentle reminder, as much as I say, turn off your computer. That's another one. Unplug it, plug it back in. As much as I hate to give those examples, it is really important to do that before we say it's not working. So there you go. All right, we're just about at time. Let me see if there's anything else we want to add. Any other questions? Anything else? Okay, next week we are going into automation. So if we go over here, we're going to talk more about how we can get this to happen on a regular basis. So every Monday, every Tuesday, every Wednesday, every Thursday, things like that. We will go through that next week. And I hope that you will join us so that you can learn how to get these done in real time, and then how to simplify your team's workflow even more. Like I said, let's connect on LinkedIn. Let's connect on Instagram. I would love to know how you're using it, what blocks you're facing, what you're loving, what challenges you've got. First two sessions, Melissa, are recorded here in the help library. So again, if you go to bottom right-hand corner, little chat box, and you click on help, you'll go to Suits AI Academy, and then the sessions are in here. Session 2 will be up later today, I would say. Session 3 will be up later this week, and then there'll be some other smaller clips to help you get the most of it. You're welcome. You're welcome. Let me know if you have any other questions. I think that's it. We're at time today. I'm really excited that everyone was able to join us, and I can't wait to see what you're doing next week. Thank you. Any new features specifically in creating content? Carter, content for what? Social, blogs, emails, all of the above, some of the above. Can you give me some more specifics? I think that, let me see. Anything else? Carter, I saw your question. Do you have another? Are you still with us? Generating images. Yes. So there are. We will go over that next week. I will make that a priority as part of the automations. The designer is really great, and the main agent can call the designer to do some pretty cool stuff. So we can go over that separately, and I'll make a point to have a section on that as well. And I think there's even some other new stuff that I'll be able to talk about soon coming in that direction. You're welcome. You're welcome. That is one of the things, right? If we can get that organic content created even faster, it'll make our life a lot easier. Benjamin, you're welcome. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we hope to see you next week. If you signed up on the Suits.ai landing page for this programming, you've already been added to the next 3. These happen every Wednesday. And if you are on Luma, you can subscribe to the Suits calendar. Here, let me show you. And you'll be able to join us every Wednesday for the next few Wednesdays. In a few weeks, you'll join Sally Slater and Ben that week for PR. Then we'll come back and we'll do some more SEO geo, do some more AI, and we'll sell our products. And then maybe we got some other ones that you'll see. So block your calendars. Join us for lunch and learn, if you will, every Wednesday. And like I said, please connect with Suits and with me because I'd love to learn more on LinkedIn and Instagram. Tell me what you're doing. Luma is a calendar app. It's what all the cool kids are using to share their events these days. That's why we joined it, because we just want to be with the cool kids. I mean, you guys are building AI enabled agencies. Of course, you're using the latest and greatest tools. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and we will see you. Thanks, Vanda. Super excited that you were able to join. We will see you guys next week. Thank you. Have a great week ahead.